Hello, I'm Michael Butler, CEO of the Tennessee Wildlife Federation. The Federation is a nonprofit dedicated to conserving Tennessee's wildlife and being the voice of sportsmen and other outdoor enthusiasts. I'm excited to have with me today former Ambassador to Japan, Bill Hagerty, who is the Republican candidate for our U.S. Senate seat in this upcoming general election. Ambassador Hagerty, thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you today.
Glad to have you. I know that the outdoors is important to you, and we've got a few questions we'd love to go over with you.
Certainly,
That's all right.
certainly.
First, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what wildlife and conservation issues are important to you?
Well, like you, I grew up as a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle Scout like you, and I've been camping outdoors and spending time outdoors and outside since I was a young boy. It's been a part of my life that I've passed on to my children too. I've been blessed with 4 wonderful kids, and they love to camp and fish and hike and hunt, and I've been able to do all of that with them, which is one of the greatest gifts as a father. We talked earlier about the fact that we both shared experiences around the country at some very impressive facilities, but right here in Tennessee, there's some of the most spectacular parks and recreational facilities I think anywhere in the world, and we're so blessed to have that here. And conservation of those facilities is very critical.
Tennessee's wildlife is held in public trust. It's what makes us different than the rest of the world. And that means that the citizens of the state own the wildlife, and it's held in trust and managed by the state and federal government. However, there's no guarantee that funds are available on a yearly basis, typically, for the management of those resources. If you're elected, what do you view your role, if any, in supporting the management of these natural resources?
Well, private land management is absolutely critical. I always think the best and first direction to go is allowing private management and ownership of things. So I think what I'd like to do is continue to support conservation and support projects that will facilitate the support and long-term development and conservation of these properties that we've got right now and the wildlife here, so that my children and grandchildren and your children and grandchildren can continue to enjoy them for a long time.
Another issue that we've really targeted here at the Federation is the issue of litter on the landscape. Mm-hmm. We've done some outreach around that, and on the roads, in the lakes, and in rivers in Tennessee, plastic and other litter is just becoming more and more abundant and a bigger problem. We're hearing from more county mayors, things like that. What are your thoughts on litter in the state, and what are some ideas that you might have on how we need to address that?
I just checked recently, and since 2006, there's actually been about a 40% decline on our roadways in litter. We need to figure out how to make that happen across our state, in our parks and other areas. Most recently with the pandemic and the increase in mask wear and the use of PPE, I think there's a real concern that there's been an increase. And we need to make certain that we're managing that well. I certainly trust Governor Lee and TDEC here, and I think you're working with TDOT too, to make certain that we get in place programs that will communicate well with the public here, but that will begin to reduce and certainly take into account the most immediate impact of this mask and PPE trash that we're seeing. In fact, on the way in today, I saw a mask just lying right on the ground. So we've got to take that into account. I'm looking forward to getting this pandemic behind us. I think that will be the first and most important step. I'm optimistic about where we are in terms of, preparing vaccines, and hopefully we'll have them into production here by the end of the year. That'll be a big first step in actually mitigating this issue near term. But I think long term, programs at TDEC, TDOT, and others here at the state level will be very important.
We've certainly seen an explosion in outdoor activity during the pandemic.
Yes.
I mean, it's really unbelievable on all fronts. But interestingly and finally, we know our senior senator for Tennessee, Lamar Alexander, is retiring. That's why you're running for the seat. He's left behind a tremendous conservation legacy, most recently leading the passage of the Great American Outdoors Act to support our public lands around the country. Before him, there was Howard Baker and Albert Gore and himself, Senator Alexander. What do you see and your role, and what do you think you can do to maintain and improve upon this legacy of senators from Tennessee as it relates to conservation?
Well, the conservation of public lands is going to be absolutely critical to our state. Again, as I say, for our kids and grandkids, I want to see that passed along. That tradition was so important in my life. I want it to be there for generations to come. It's also important to our economy too. Tourism is a huge part of our economy, and We've got national parks here in Tennessee. You think about the Great Smoky Mountains, the impact that has on the economy of East Tennessee. We've got state parks throughout the state that are absolutely gorgeous and have a tremendous economic impact too. Supporting those is going to be absolutely critical, and I look forward to working with Governor Lee and governors to come to make certain that we have a well-integrated process of supporting them and making certain that conservation processes are in place moving forward.
Well, thank you for your time and for your answers to those questions. To learn more about conservation policy in Tennessee and ways you can get involved, visit tnwf.org/policy. Thank you for joining us.